Welcome to Beginning Note-Taking with Miss Miles. I hope that you are settled in because this will go over what you need to be able to take good notes in class. So what we're going to talk about is when to take notes, tools, methods, shorthand, and using note cards. Alright, so tools. If you want to build a house, you need a hammer and nails. You need the tools. The same can be said about trying to build that 4.0. So you guys need to have pencils and pens for every class, notebook, three-ring binder, no loose leaf paper. You want to have everything inside of a binder. You need to have highlighters and note cards to be able to get everything that you need. And you'll need a separate set of these for each of your classes. Now, you can have a three-ring binder that shares for different classes, but you'll need to separate them with some dividers if you're going to go ahead and do that. So, the worst thing is loose leaf paper. It doesn't really work. You can't really find what you need. It'll end up in your book bag or inside of your locker and you'll lose things. And when it comes to studying, which is to go over your notes, you won't be able to find them. A legal pad is a little bit better, but it's going to be hard for you to keep up with that. And usually those sheets of paper get kind of crumpled if they're in your book bag. Spiral notebook is good, but you can't really put in any handouts in your spiral notebook. That's why we suggest the three-ring binder, because you can put all of your notes inside there, any handouts that are given, any quizzes, and you can kind of divide things up as you go along. The first method we're going to talk about is the Cornell Method. So to get started, you'll want to draw a line down the right side of your paper. Now some people like the left side of the paper so they can follow along with this red line here. I'm not so keen on that one because there isn't a lot of space, but it's up to you. You'll want to date your paper at the top of your paper, and you're going to include your class description. So it'd be like math, second period, or third period, health, whatever it is. And step 3 is to write what subject you're covering, and we just covered that. Next thing is you are going to record as many meaningful facts as possible in this section right here. You're going to listen for statements that are repeated. You need to know this. This is on the test. Write this down. If you see, like most of our PowerPoints are kind of broken down to an old, like subject and then facts up under it, you would want to write your notes the same way. You could even copy what's on the PowerPoint. And there's nothing wrong with taking pictures of a PowerPoint or asking for the PowerPoint to be sent to you or placed in your Google Classroom so that you can look at it later. Looking over your things at the end of the day is how you get studying done. Reduce. So you're going to summarize your main points. So that means just kind of boiling it down in your own words so that you can understand it. Afterward, and I mean later on in the day or maybe at the end of the week, you're going to read those main points out to yourself and then you're going to review them. So you're going to take 10 minutes each week, maybe 15 minutes if you're just kind of going forward with it and trying to look over everything that you've written out. And you'll want to write your questions about what you have about what was talked about in class on that right side. So instead of you interrupting the teacher right when things are going on because you're going to be busy taking notes, you'll want to go ahead and just write out the questions on the right side there and get them answered. If you don't get them answered that day, you can try the next day and get those questions answered. But if you have them written out here, you'll know whether or not that you've had a chance to get all of your understanding laid out for yourself. The next method is the outlining method. It works the same way as the Cornell Method main space, but you're just going to kind of just write everything out. You're going to just make sure that you're putting in dating your paper and your class description. You'll do that with everything so that you can know what's going on. This is good too if you're sharing notes with friends or somebody else in class if you missed it. If you know what day that they talked about a certain thing, you say, when did you give us that assignment? And she says, it was Tuesday. And you knew that you were out Tuesday. You can ask a buddy about Tuesday. Do you have those notes? And they will have them ready for you. Use numbers or letters to denote main points. You know how I have this one is just like these arrows, but you can do main point, subject, and then one supporting point, two supporting point, and then additional support. You see how I number them, and then for everything that's additional support, I kind of indent and then put the little dash part there. The reason why you want to do that is because it's easier to look over and find something. If you know that you were talking about cells last week, if you have a.cells is easier to find it than if you were to write everything in just one long stream. That way you kind of get an idea of what she's talking about, or if you're trying to find something specific, what your notes say. Alright, practice. Now you can pause this video at any time to do the practice, but what you want to do is read over this, and then you're going to try to make yourself some notes based on this particular information about the domestic dog. You're not going to write everything down. You're just going to write the things that are important. Now, things to note from what you're looking at. Whenever you see anything underlined in any kind of print, it's probably important. These can be vocabulary words. These are things that you need to find more information about. You want to make sure that you include all of those and list it out. But again, like I said, when you're taking notes, you do not have time to write down everything. So take about 3 minutes or maybe 4 minutes and try to make yourself a 1-paragraph note section about the domestic dog. The mapping method. So the mapping method is for those of you who are visual learners and like a little bit of art. So you're going to get started with dating your paper, including your class description on the top right like we do with all of our methods. The step 2 is to write your main point and then draw arrows to supporting points. Let me show you some examples of mind maps. Alright, so here is a mind map that someone drew based on ecology. So this would have been done in one of their science classes. But you see there's lots of drawings and then there's information. So the food chain, they kind of drew out the sun, plants, dirt, animals, and right for this one, the cats at the top of the food chain for them to understand. And then there are words they have to understand about that. So solar energy, primary producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. All of these are in levels. These are things that they need to understand and have to do with the food chain. The food chain is then connected to the food web. It says food chains are interlinked, and they drew a little symbol to illustrate that they are interlinked. And then there's more information about that. This is a detailed notes, but all of these are drawn out in kind of a scattered way, and they've used pencils and crayons and pens. If you know that that's something that interests you, then this is a perfect way to illustrate that for a class. Okay, flashcards. So there's a great website called flashcards.com that we'll visit, but if you don't want to go through all of that and you want to go the old school way, then the easiest thing to do is to get yourself a stack. You can come and see me if you don't have some. You're going to create flashcards to help with memorization. A lot of things that you need to know are just going to have to be memorized. You can keep cards with you at your desk during lectures to write down important words immediately and then add the definitions later. Remember how we said that things that are underlined may be useful or informative? If you're in some other class where you're talking about a particular person, you can put that particular person on the flashcards. Or if there's a date that you need to know, like the War of 1812, you would want to write that on your flashcard on the front. Then on the back, you're going to add the definitions or the things that you need to know. You're going to use the 3 R's to solidify that information. So you're going to read the front and the back of the card. You're going to recite the word and then read the definition out loud. Then you'll review. So that's when you get your friends together with you to help you with that. So again, the 3 R's are to read, recite, and review. So you're going to study on your own, reading the front and the back. You're going to recite on your own, saying it out loud to yourself, the front and the back. And then when you review, you're going to give your buddy your flashcards, and they're just going to show you the front, and you're going to be able to, you're going to tell them the back. If you can't, if you are right, they'll say great, and they'll move on to another flashcard. If not, then you're going to have to flip it on the other side and take a look at it again, and then you keep on doing that until you can go through all of your flashcards without them stopping. The last thing we're going to talk about is shorthand. Now, just like you text in shorthand, where you use the @ symbol instead of at, you can write your notes in the same fashion. That way you can get as much information as possible written out. So, e.g. for example, i.e. for that is, with, without, so on and so forth. these are a few of the symbols that can be used, that are generally used in other shorthand spaces, but you can adopt some of these or make up your own. Just make sure that you understand what that shorthand means so that when you go back to review your notes, you can say, oh yeah, I get it. This is BC for because. Now there's practice. You can go and click on any of these links, and I'll put them down on in the show notes, and you can try to use any one of the different methods that we reviewed to see how well you've done. So if you understand, let's go back and see what kinds we had. We discussed the Cornell method, the outline method, the mapping method, using shorthand, and using note cards. If you have any questions about any of these methods, you can always reach out to me. I have a bunch of handouts and all kinds of goodies. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your year.